a fraction of an inch. Either team could have been in a commanding position in that game. I think the Panthers had the opportunity first, and then it looked like the Bruins were going to put it away and go up 4-2. And the puck clanks. I mean, it was like that. I don't know. You weren't a highlight degenerate, but one of the worst sounds in highlight was when you heard that clank of a guy that you needed to score a point, and the pelota would hit the metal up there on the lower part of the wall, and you thought, you complete piece of crap. How could you do that? How could you shank one? I mean, even cursing out Joey Cornbread. Imagine that. Nice Jewish boy playing highlight against all of these guys, these animals from
that grew up playing it their whole life. He's from like Brooklyn.
Yeah, the Basque region of Spain. This guy is like a Jewish kid. He grew up on a knish and a bagel and cream cheese. And yet, if he misplayed one, you were like, yeah, Jesus, Joey, what the hell is wrong with you? You're like that with Bobrovsky, though. I mean, he could be the second coming of Terry Sawchuk, and you wouldn't care. Not every goal is the goalie's fault.
The time.
Wake up with Defo, joined by Lubie. Welcome to the Defo Show.
Yes, great to be with you here on this first upcoming weekend of May, the month of May, 2023. Amazing how the time is flying by. Jeff DeForest, along with one Mike Lubitz here, the Defo Show on South Florida Live, and today should be action-packed. We're going to go right to the center of what has become a major controversy surrounding the Kentucky Derby, and that is the condition of the horses there at Churchill Downs, and in particular a local trainer who's had just monumental success here on a local scene, a gentleman named Safi Joseph Jr., who popped onto the scene, started winning at an inordinate rate of success. And there were some aspersions cast his way about, well, what the hell is this guy doing? Because we've seen it in the past where trainers have had phenomenal success for a period of time. And then you're thinking, this guy's got to be doing something. And sure enough, it turned out, I remember there was a period of time, I guess that this goes back maybe 25, 30 years, where horses were trained and racing at Gulfstream. This one particular trainer, and he was winning everything. He was winning at like a 45, 50% clip. The owner of these horses was buying horses, claiming horses for $25,000, dropping them down into a $5,000 claiming race. They were overwhelming favorites, and they would win. I mean, as a matter of routine. Frank something, Paseo or something like that. I forget the guy's name, the trainer. And anyway, I think the owner is out of racing now. And the trainer, it turned out, it was rubbing cayenne pepper on the genitals of the male horses. And somehow that was a stimulus for their success. Cayenne pepper. Can you imagine, Louis?
Somehow, Jimmy, you don't think that would make them... I would make me move.
Did you ever have an experience like that? I remember I was with this, rather radical woman for the type of woman I was dating at the time. This was when I was a young Defo, probably about 19 or 20 years old. And I had met this woman on a beach, and she was a flight attendant. So she was very worldly by comparison to me, who had experienced maybe like 1 year of college, which was an eye-opener for sure. But I was pretty straight-laced, back in that time. And so... this woman, I don't know if you ever read these, books by Herman Hesse or whatever. Was there a character, a woman named Kamala, where, this character that Hesse was writing about, ended up meeting a woman who showed him everything that he really needed to know. You ever have one of those in your life, Lubie? Where you realize, I don't know anything about this until I met her. And what is it that you're doing with that stuff? Not that it was the last tango in Paris or anything like that. It wasn't like she was shoving a stick of margarine on my ass. But, and I don't want to get too grotesque here at the top of the show while you guys are getting ready, make breakfast or whatever, take the kids off to school. She took some stuff out, and I had never heard of it. It looked, some kind of Kama Sutra-esque called Tiger's Balm.
Oh, no. You've never... Oh, God.
Rubbed it right on my,
No.
family jewels there.
No.
Whoa.
No.
Talk about a menthol smell, yeah.
Yeah, well, I don't understand how that would help sexual performance. That's literally...
It didn't help me. I mean, it sent me straight to the bathroom. I mean, I was doubled over in pain. What are you talking about? She would have been better off kicking me in the balls than putting that stuff on it. It burns, man.
That's the burn you put on your kneecap. I can't even imagine.
Yeah, right. Like if you've had heart surgery, you rub a little Tiger's Balm on to ease the pain. All right, so weird stuff happens like that. What was it? Frank Pissarro? Yeah, something like
Pissarro,
that.
Mr. Mayo is telling us Pissarro.
Pissarro, yeah. I remember that period of time there. Everybody's like startled. I don't know that was the case with Saffy Joseph, but all of a sudden he's suspended from the Kentucky Derby. He had a horse in there, a long shot. The horse was a bomb, but was going to go off maybe 40, 50 to 1, but had won the Wood Memorial, for God's sake, at a giant price. I think it was 61 in the Wood Memorial. And so, you had to give the horse consideration, right? It was able to beat some of these top 3-year-olds in a big race in New York. And it was right there with 2 other horses that were going to garner consideration. So, yeah, you had to at least factor this horse into your thinking, if not into your monetary equation. And so suspended now, Saffy Joseph. Two of his horses competed at Churchill Downs this past week, and both just collapsed after racing. And so there's concern now that maybe there's something up with his barn. Mike Mayo, who's going to join us later on, was speculating that this could be a byproduct of horses getting COVID-19.
Yes, that's what Mayo was intimating.
I don't know that we have, any definitive answer. I mean, it could have just been the 1 in a trillion possibility of just horrendous luck, where 2 horses that were competing couldn't handle the stress of racing that particular day, whatever the reason. And even though there was no foul play or no evil intent or no unscrupulous activity, it could have happened. I don't know. Is that a naive position to take, Lubie, or do we have to assume that? Because, if it does turn out to be hey, this was just horrendously bad luck and timing, then, it's one of those deals like where an athlete is accused of rape and then they never print the retraction, even though he was eventually absolved of all guilt. They dropped the charges because there was no evidence, whatever. And they never say anything about it in the media. It's always like a stigma that unfortunately is attached to this guy forever. I'm not sure what the story will be with Saffy Joseph Jr. I like to assume that there's enough scrutiny in the game to, feel like maybe he's on the level, especially competing at a track like Gulfstream Park. But Churchill Downs, people, that's it. They waved it off, Lubie. So we're going to go to the backstretch of Churchill Downs later on this morning at about 7:45. One of our favorites. We just wanted her to handicap the race for us, Caton Bredar. Now, you saw yesterday as Mike Mayo gave you his selections. We had Polyman on, other people with opinions that we shared, their choices in the race. And essentially, we have named every horse in the race as a possibility. I don't know that we're helping you any, guys. I mean, I almost feel like we should be writing for Musburger's, Las Vegas Sports Information Network, where, they give you every possibility, and then they say, all right, so draw your own conclusion. But there you have it. Right? The old Gordon Sully thing. There you have it. So very interesting development. And Caton, she probably was back there thinking, and maybe this is the way we'll introduce the whole thing, that, and I saw her doing some interviews yesterday on TVG, and she's talking, look, this is the race that is supposed to be, a great inspiration for everybody to celebrate the pageantry and the beauty and the whole thing. And everybody comes together, 150,000 people, and they're all focused on something. And, you see these beautiful animals and they're running and they do some amazing things. And it's supposed to be all about the good, Lubie, not about all of this negativity.
Well, let me ask you, because you've been around the game a long time, you're a big fan of it. You've watched many a track. You've talked to many people involved in it. You get involved yourself. You've owned a horse, and
very briefly, I owned 2 losing horses. Yeah,
didn't go well, but you've been an owner in your own way. Let me ask you, and you're cynical, as our dear friend Tony Segreto likes to say, as anyone. He comes out of nowhere. There's all these reservations about him. Then they go there. 1 passes. Okay. A second horse passes in the same week. Maybe they haven't found drugs. Do you really, really, really believe there's zero foul play? You, Jeff DeForest.
I don't know. I don't want to assume that there is. I mean, look, even Bob Baffert has been busted for using doses of various drugs, whether they were performance enhancing enough to make a difference or not. But, I mean, how many violations does he have? Top trainer. I mean, a guy that was a Cinderella story in racing himself kind of came out of nowhere. He was like a basketball coach, I think, first, and a quarter horse trainer. And then next thing you know, he pops on the scene in California, and he's sending out Triple Crown winners. And when he put the Churchill Downs, the Kentucky Derby trophy on his head. I mean, he endeared himself to the public forever. I mean, here's like a normal, fun-loving, low-key guy, and is sort of reviled now by a lot of people because look, he finds himself out of the Derby, the top-notch guy. I don't like to assume somebody is guilty of something that heinous. That would I can't imagine. I mean, this guy was training for Ken Ramsey. He was a prominent owner down here, and those two horses were both owned by Ramsey. And Ramsey's big around the country. I mean, he's not just a local guy, but he runs a lot of horses in South Florida during the championship meet, especially. Does very well. I can't imagine he's jeopardizing the well-being of horses that are of a high caliber, or relatively so. I mean, I can't imagine that he would do it to the extreme that it would cause this type of activity. I don't want to assume that this is anything other than some kind of bizarre. I don't want to say coincidence, but very unfortunate. I mean, it's sad that this is a story that is being attached to the Derby. Now, a lot of people are just like these mass shootings will be just shrugging it off, not to compare it to as insane as human beings are treating each other. But look, the treatment of animals certainly should be something that is regarded in a very serious nature. And racing definitely has issues with that. I mean, look, you got the PETA protesters outside the gate there on certain occasions. I don't know if they're going to be assembled in Kentucky, but very bizarre. And you also had the scratch of the horse from California that won the Santa Anita Derby. And, I mean, a lot of people like to, the East Coast bias, they like to just dismiss those horses as if they didn't exist, but still could have been, a factor in the race. So that was, a fairly ordinary situation where the horse developed some kind of mild fever, and out of an extra, precaution, they decided not to run the horse, even though the problem hadn't really become all that serious yet. So there's the other side of it, Louie. I mean, scratching a horse out of the dream race, the Kentucky Derby, everybody's aspiration in the game. You probably could say this about hockey players, that anybody that ever laces up a pair of skates, what is their goal, right? To eventually hoist the Stanley Cup in victory. And anybody in the horse racing game, it doesn't matter how accomplished they are, how successful they are, how much money they're making, how well they're doing on their local circuit. If you went around and polled virtually everybody in the game and said, what is it that, the one thing that you would love to do? And if it wasn't just to run in the Kentucky Derby, obviously, the dream situation would be to win it. Grooms want to be involved with a horse that wins it. Jockeys want to be involved with a horse that wins it. Trainers want to be involved with a horse that wins it. Owners, obviously, a horse that wins it. That is everybody's, kind of singular choice as the ultimate that could possibly happen to them if they were involved in the sport. So, yeah, I mean, you hate to see, something like this eclipse the glory of the event, but we'll get into it with Caton Bredar, see what the reaction is around Churchill Downs, because that is a weird development right at the last minute.
Look, I'm not saying that they're trying to hurt the horses. They obviously, as much as you want to win the Derby, there's other races after, so you don't want to risk their life, because not only you don't want to risk their life, but you want them to run in other races. But you just said it. The Derby is the pinnacle. When we see athletes and coaches get around the pinnacle, and managers and owners get around the pinnacle, they will push the envelope. So I'm not saying an Anthony's 100%. I'm sorry. If something's a trillion to one, the lottery's not even fucking a trillion to one. Okay.
Yeah.
So if something's a trillion to one, it's not an accident and it's not a coincidence. Okay. There's not many a coincidence in life, let alone a trillion to one.
But does it mean that it was the, direct fault, and responsibility of the trainer? I mean, maybe it was something beyond his control.
I don't know.
If Mayo's theory is true, then, how could the guy be held accountable for that?
Mayo's thing may be highly true.
Yeah.
It feels fucking weird. And we know, you said it. Anyone around this sport has this, with the Derby, it just has this thing. So it's like, if you can feel you're close, and maybe you're skipping. I don't know. I don't know enough about this shit. It just seems really freaking weird.
Well, these horses that Safi Joseph was running at Churchill Downs were not running in the Derby. They were just racing.
So that's the
thing. During. I mean, they just opened up this week, so that happened after races. There was a horse called Wild on Ice that got injured. So you were thinking maybe there was some problem with the track, but Joseph's horses just collapsed. It had nothing to do with like torn sesamoid or some kind of injury to the legs, or it was more like a heart attack, that type of thing. So yeah, I mean, weird. I mean, I'm watching Caton yesterday doing, kind of. Look, I mean, let's face it. Like when we were on Radio Row, are you going to have a bunch of negative attack interviews? No, but there was nothing really to be negative about at that time, except that this story was swirling around, about the four horses. Oddly, at Churchill Downs, all either having to be euthanized or just collapsing on their own in a short period of time. I mean, it was very much like what was happening at Santa Anita. So you were thinking, right, first off, that probably there was some issue with the track that might need, to garner some attention. But, that's not the case. But anyway, Caton's like talking to trainers about how happy they are to be there. And then I would imagine, right, her bosses turn and say, all right, get to the bottom of this.
Yeah,
And all of a sudden, she's Mike Wallace on the backstretch there, trying to figure out what the hell's going on out there.
It's a big deal.
Party time.
It's not. Look, and those horses aren't racing in the Derby, but again, he could be using those horses as tests. That even makes it more plausible to me that there's some funny businesses. He knows these aren't the Derby horses, so he's not going to test shit out on that. I don't know. I know I'm going down a rabbit hole, but
it could be a zillion things. I mean, it's not really unfair to speculate, but
that's my thing. To just automatically say he's a discreet trainer, and there's no way. Bob Baffert was literally the leader in the sport at the time, or right there with Pletcher as the leaders of the sport, and he gets popped.
Yeah.
Okay. No one, I'm sorry. And it's not being with you. It's the last 20 years of sports fandom. No one is above the cheating. Like whenever you think that guy, there's no way. Like there's no one is. It's just how it is.
No. We've seen it. I mean, we've seen it, especially in horse racing, where guys that you thought, wow, it was absolutely impossible to conceive of this guy, getting on the wrong side of things. I mean, he doesn't have to. I mean, it's one thing some, trainer at Charlestown gets popped for using, Sublimaze or something. And you're thinking, okay, this poor guy was about to get thrown out of his house there. He couldn't pay his rent. And if he didn't pick up the $1,000 he got for finishing fourth, he wasn't going to be able to eat that night. So, of course, he resorted to some kind of unscrupulous and, criminal means of accomplishing something. But, at the Kentucky Derby at that level with those, priced animals, you can't imagine that, anybody would want to, take any chance that unless they're just, collecting fan insurance policies. But, you would have to think that the risk would be too high with this caliber of horse. If you win the Derby, what is your horse worth? Think about it. It's not just a purse money. I mean, syndicated for hundreds of millions of dollars. It's incredible. All right. The Panthers last night, we talked about this on Defo on 5. I was trying to think of examples of where you've gotten off to a bad start. I can certainly think of some when it comes to betting, where you're all in, you're stacked in on a horse. You've been waiting months for this horse to run. And you're convinced that, you can't believe you're getting 8-1, and you're convinced this horse cannot lose. You've told all of your friends. You're actually running to the track to make sure that you're there to, go ahead and pass along all kinds of congratulatory stuff, when they're in the winner's circle there. Way to go, Johnny V! Right? And they break from the gate, and you're looking, hey, where's the 6? And he's still in the gate. And all of your plans, all of your hopes, all of your dreams dash. They go up in smoke immediately. We use the example today. You're out on a date, right? You make some kind of awkward move. Now, Lubie, I don't know. I mean, and you have the woman of your dreams sitting in front of you. You can't believe that a woman this attractive, this interesting, this engaging, and this willing to go to bed with you that night is actually sitting across the table from you. And what happens, right? You reach to, hold her hand or something, do some kind of romantic gesture. Things are going well enough. And what do? You plots a bottle of, a glass of red wine right in her lap, right? And she happens to be wearing a white dress that she had just told you that she wore it on this date because she thought you were special. She had gotten it from her mother, and it was her wedding gown. And you're like, what? That can't be right. It was, what was the dress that Kardashian was wearing? That was from like the Wizard of Oz or something. What was that deal?
She was wearing it was the Marilyn Monroe.
Oh yeah, Marilyn Monroe.
Now she is on Marilyn Monroe's level now, which
Yeah, and she tore it or something. She
I
farted
don't know
in the
she tore it.
dress ribbons. Yeah,
I just know it was the gala at Met Gala, I think last year. It was like a big fucking deal. She was going to reprise the Marilyn Monroe dress.
I would think proportionally, having seen the body type of Kim Kardashian versus Marilyn Monroe, that they might have had to let that dress out a notch or two.
I mean, Marilyn Monroe was curvy.
She was a skinny little waif-like thing, wasn't she? I mean,
It was curvy for her era because you didn't have boob jobs and ass lifts.
But her ass wasn't inflated with, some kind of, tire filler or anything like that.
Kardashian in the last 10 years has had every surgery known to man. Yes, their bodies were probably a little different. I don't even know what the fuck she did to the dress, but I remember.
Whatever happened with that dress?
Shirley was all a tither about that last year. It was like a big fucking deal. She was going to do it. And where I was aghast because I'm like, she's not Marilyn Monroe. Marilyn Monroe was like in movies and shit and like crossed posters and crossed sex.
And Kim Kardashian selling zit cream. Yeah, exactly.
Women. Like men think every person I talk to that's not some woman hoping to become her thinks she's a fucking joke. Like, no one thought that of Marilyn Monroe. Marilyn Monroe had gotten to a place when she did that where she was like an icon already.
Universally admired. I mean, she married Joe D for a while.
Yes.
Unbelievable.
I don't know.
I was doing John F. Kennedy. Get the hell out of here, man. You have to be a woman of some significance to travel in those circles.
She was socially at that point, which Kardashian is not.
I'm not a Kardashian fan because I equate them with the royals. I really do. I mean, it's like, what the hell did you do? I mean, what is your talent? What is your gift to society?
Her mom was able to exploit a sex tape.
Yeah.
That her mom created.
Great. I mean, and people were entertained by this nonsense that they were doing. Who was the basketball player?
No, there's like 12 of them, but it started with Chris.
Chris Humphries, right?
Chris Humphries is where it started. And with Ray J, Reggie Bush, Chris Humphries.
When she made him stick his head in the toilet to find that ring that dropped down there, I mean, the coach couldn't get him to run one gasser. And, here's Kardashian. What kind of control do women have over men? It's insane.
Well, I can't speak to that.
All right. So I don't know. Have you ever been, what has been like a time where you realized that you were finished right away? I recall this story, and I remember where I was at the time. And I told you this story a couple of times where, and it's embarrassing when this happens. And I will never, let myself fall into this trap again. But, I was doing a show. I was at a new station, relatively new position there. I didn't know everybody, but I always like to be friendly with everybody at the station if I can. And so the sales guy that set up the gig there, which was not easy to do because this station wasn't exactly, thriving. It's a relatively new concept for the station that we were broadcasting on. And we finally had like a remote activity. So the guy comes out there and he brings his wife. And I thought, okay, I'll endear myself to, these people and, ask about, how the pregnancy is going.
No. And he had never mentioned pregnancy.
No, I mean, this woman looked like she was about to give birth. She really did. And it wasn't like, she was fat or anything. She literally looked like she was carrying a baby. I mean, there's a different look than just an overweight woman.
No, the stomach's perfectly round. That's not a normal stomach.
Yes. I mean, it looked like she had swallowed, a basketball. It really did. Yeah. Okay. So, of course, what does the guy say? He says, she's not pregnant. You're like, fuck. What a bad start. That stinks. There's no way out of it. I mean, what can you do? I apologize. No, she's a very attractive woman. So glad you guys are happy. Maybe you'll have a baby soon.
The dress falls weird.
These designers today, man. That Lagerfeld, he's out of his mind. Did you see those outfits, those wretched schmatas they were wearing at the Met Gala? They call that fashion? Get out of here. Holy Cindy Crawford, what are we talking about? So, I mean, a bad start, right? And that was last night's Panther game, was it not? Bad start. Wow.
Oh, yeah, that was that.
If you watched the first 5 minutes of that game, you would have to have concluded that this thing was done, no?
It was on where I was doing the trivia, so I kept an eye on it. But if I was at home, I would have stopped watching. For 100%, I would have stopped watching. The fact they got down 2-0 and then had another penalty in 5 minutes. Okay.
Well, and in that in the power play that Toronto had the first one when they scored. They get up 1-0. All right, they were putting a lot of pressure on Bobrovsky, but it looked like he was going to have a really bad night, didn't it?
Yes.
I mean, not only were they not helping him at all, but he wasn't helping himself. And then he makes a save. He has a glove save. He's got the puck in his glove, and he literally it pops out of the glove, and it's just sitting there right in front of him for like it seemed like an eternity. Did it not?
Yes.
And was at a point in time where you thought this guy could not stop a watermelon if they shoved it at him. Nothing. I mean, there's no way that Toronto's not going to have like 5 goals inside of the first 10 minutes of this game. And you're looking for Alex Lyon. You're wondering if he's in the building. Or, maybe he doesn't have a Canadian residency, so they didn't allow him in the building like the Panthers. Yeah. Are they going to allow the players in that don't have a U.S. residency?
I don't know. I don't know what they're doing.
That would be an interesting development. That whole story there is a total embarrassment for anybody associated with South Florida sports, that the Panthers are denying people that don't have a U.S. residency the chance to buy tickets through their sources, which I would imagine have been exhausted by now, no? I mean, can you possibly buy tickets off the team at this point? I can't imagine that they wouldn't be sold out and that every ticket that's available is at some jacked up rate on the secondary market, no? And you would think, too, the way people love to jump on the bandwagon in South Florida, Louis, this will be a hot ticket now for game number 3, even hotter than it might have been otherwise. I would imagine, too, that would the Toronto people become just even more determined to fill the arena and make sure that they drown out every single Panther fan? Or do you think that they have thrown in the towel on the series after losing this game last night? Because it looked like they were going to run away and hide, that there was no way that the Panthers were going to be in this thing. I took off. It was 2-0. I did catch a little bit of the subsequent power play to the goal. And the way the Panthers staved that off, I thought, well, okay. I mean, it's kind of like, look, I've bet on fighters, and they come out of the corner and get clocked right away. I mean, they're already, out on the canvas taking a 10 count, but before, the people have even been seated with their popcorn and and a beer. So it's a bad start. I mean, that start was indicative of a game that was going to be a blowout, and in typical fashion, right? Home team loses game 1. But this doesn't happen so much in hockey. It did last night in the Dallas Stars game against your Seattle Kraken, Louis, the team that you have now embraced. How weird would that be if the Panthers played the Kraken for the championship?
That would be strange, and I can't imagine the hockey world would be very happy about it.
They have to be, kind of excited about what's happening. I think they're doing very well, in terms of television ratings compared to. I mean, the barometer might be very low on that compared to what they've done in the past, because we know that hockey has really struggled to sell itself on TV. It's weird. It's an abstract game, Louis. Once you watch it for a little while, you can't really describe what it is, but you know what it is. You know what I mean? I mean, you know what's going to happen on virtually, every time a guy touches the puck. And by the way, how brilliant were the Panthers last night on puck management? I want to keep throwing that out there.
I mean, I feel like they were horrendous at puck management, but I don't know
puck management. Yeah, they kept turning the puck over.
I don't know what it is. So sure, they won. So I guess it must have been decent.
Puck management had to be the key. No? You ask any expert, and they will tell you it was puck management.
When I watched the game, every time I watched, I saw the Maple Leafs shooting and barraging Bobrovsky and the Panthers fighting for their life.
Yeah.
But they won. So
they managed to hang on. I mean, that was incredible. The fact they even reversed the trend that was going on. I mean, Bobrovsky literally he puts that puck on a tee, and there are like 6 Toronto shooters. Even the goalie's up there, lined up in front of him, and just ready to pop this thing home. And so it's 2-zip, and they're 5 minutes into the game, and you're thinking, okay, they flatlined tonight. And, that was unfortunate that whatever they did while they were in Toronto between game 1 and game 2, that off night must have been one beauty. And these guys are real, renegades. I mean, you're talking about rebels without a cause, these hockey players. I mean, you can imagine when they party, they must party hard. They have a different attitude. Basketball players are very self-righteous, are they not, for some strange reason? I mean, they're just playing a game like these other guys. But it's all like, I mean, did you see LeBron and Anthony Davis at the, I mean, I'm sure they don't want to be there after they got blown out by Golden State, lose by like 30.
30. They were down by 30 in that game.
Yeah, and that was with their starters in the game. I mean, they had both LeBron James had a phenomenal first half. Shot like 9 for 12 or 9 for 13 and had 21 points in the first half, 2 points in the second half. Klay Thompson relocated.
One off.
He had a low jack in the ball there, man, in terms of going into the basket. Just located it every time. So, yeah, I mean, look, it could happen, right? You have a bunch of really good shooters. They're all on at the same time. You're not. And you get blown out. But, in a post-game press conference, I mean, they're absolutely despondent, and yet they're philosophizing about this and that, and the questions are very very existential. Like Ira Winderman was asking the questions or something, right? And then they start talking about stuff that you're thinking, well, what am I? I mean, am I drinking hemlock with Plato and Aristotle? What the fuck? It's a basketball game.
I hate it.
But the hockey players, they're loose. I mean, maybe they go through the feigned humility after in the interviews, but they seem a lot more open than the basketball players do. And then on top of that, before the game, they're genuinely just having a good time. Did you catch that? They had a little snippet. I guess you were watching without the sound on. But and by the way, did the Chronics win last night? What happened there?
Chronics fell off a cliff. Chronics seventh.
Seventh
Yeah.
out of how many teams?
Last night was fucking loaded. It was actually sort of annoying. The one night Ken's not there, so I was by myself. We had like 13 to 14 teams, so it was sort of hectic. I was a little stressed.
How many
out.
people are on each team, or does it vary? Can you have as few as one?
We've had one person teams, and we had a team that I think had like 8.
8.
Yeah, it ranges. And the Chronics I think had 6.
6 people.
5 or 6, 4. Yeah, 5.
No, I mean, do they have to go into categories? It would seem like an unfair advantage to have that many people, or is that ruined?
Yeah, I mean, that's on you to bring a crowd. It definitely, the team that won only had like, I think 4 with, and one was a child, so 3, and they kicked ass. They were like on it, and they come every week. So I was above thinking they were cheating. They come every week. They do a lot of trivia, so they have the style down. And
Was Safi Joseph there, the trainer?
I don't know. I was looking for Baffert actually. But
hey, Jill, you want to play?
Oh, Bob's here.
Hey, Bobby. What do you know? How weird was Baffert that time we interviewed him in San Francisco?
This is very.
Was he? I mean, we had a lot of strange people. We had Jeff Goldblum on that show.
That was actually a weird day because you had Rick Barry not being weird.
Rick Barry, was like outrageously interesting.
Affable,
Yeah.
was friendly,
Laughing.
Communicative, 3 things he never is. And because I've had him on before, and I know you've had him on.
Yeah.
Dealt with him when he was a jackass. And then we had Goldblum, who we didn't talk about anything. And it was
and he was out there too. I mean, I didn't fully understand what he was talking about, but I felt like it wasn't important to really know.
There's some game that he plays on set because we had him and Liam Hemsworth, and they talked about this game they play on set, and he was like remembering actors in relation to movies.
Yeah.
And he would just throw out a thing, and
It was like a Dead or Alive of like people in Hollywood. No,
you went for it because it's like, fuck it, who gives a shit about Independence 2? This is fucking great.
Yeah.
And then then Bob Baffert was also there at like 6 a.m, and he was like out of it. He was very quiet.
He was weird that day. He's like showing us pictures of Cody there or whatever, betting horses. I mean, with like a stack of sticks, the likes of which even my grandson Liam would be proud of. And he's he's cashed in to the tune of about $4,000 so far. So look, the kid just turned 8, so he's on his way. You know who his idol is? Jeff Bezos.
Oh yeah, you've said
he loves Bezos. Yeah. Anyway, before the game, they have a clip in the locker room, and they showed the Toronto coach trying to pump up his team, and he had a couple of players circled on the board there, and then they do this thing. I guess it's a hockey ritual, right? Where I've seen it before, where they say who's going to be on the ice in the starting 5. And they go, okay, I need Joe, I need Fred, I need Bob, I need Igor, and it's kind of cool. And the Panthers were loose as a freaking goose before this game. They had that guy Cousins, Kirk Cousins, who I didn't even know was on the team. Did you? Until he scored the other night. Where did he come from? Now he's like a leader. Was he with the team all year? I never saw this cat. Did you?
Cousins and Montour. And I've heard of Montour.
Montour, was good during the regular season.
I heard of him, but I didn't know he was like a team leader. Like I didn't know he was like a guy who scored. I was like, Montour. And then Cousins, I'd never heard of. Outside,
No.
you're not wrong. Kirk Cousins, I'd never heard of this Cousins, and they're both highly involved now.
Cousins is doing the pregame ritual, and I have to say, man, I'm thinking, wow, these guys, they don't feel any pressure whatsoever. I mean, all of this talk about is that just something the media conjures up about the pressure, the pressure, the pressure. I mean,
Well,
there's pressure on everybody. We're all in a pressure business, are we not?
that's what I'm saying. Like the players, I don't look. The players, I guess, feel it. They're not going to show up. But once you're there on the ice, to me, it's like, it is what it is at that point. Like you've done all your preparation, you've done all your stuff. Let the puck fall as it may.
How do these guys do it, though? I mean, would you agree? I mean, think about it. We're not even midway through, or could be midway through, the second round of the postseason. We're early stages, second round. You have to win this series, win another series, and then win another series after that against supposedly successively better teams than the one that you just faced. All right. I mean, maybe that's not the case if you consider the Bruins regular season, but unfortunately for the Bruins, the regular season ended, and they turned into a pumpkin. Which I mean, up 3-1. Imagine. This really has to be one of the most devastating things that ever happened. It can't eclipse Bucky Dent, can it? Bucky Dent's home run? I don't think so. Because it was a first round knockout loss here. But I mean, and that was a playoff game, right? Boston and the Yankees to decide who was going to the World Series. And Bucky Dent hits his home run. Bucky frickin' Dent. I mean, it's very appropriate. That's the way you would say it. A guy that had 3 home runs all year, and he's the one that does you in. This thing last night, though. Wow, we're witnessing a little Cinderella, are we not? They battle back, scrappy as hell, very reminiscent of what was going on in that 95-96 playoff run. And they just, they don't throw in the towel. They've won 5 straight postseason games now.
Okay, is it 5 or 6 straight? Because I think they've won 5 road games in a row. And they did win a home game. So I'm trying to.
All right. Well, they won the last 3 against Boston and now 2. Yes. 5 games in a row.
5 in a row. Okay.
Yeah.
And I guess that's 4 in a row on the road.
It may be that they've won 5 straight on the road, but
no, because they only won at home. If they've only won 5 in a row, and they did win at least one game at home last series. So then they won 4 in a row on the road, which is pretty impressive.
So what happens? Is it safe to assume that they're just really good now? And they found a spark. I mean, they replaced the guy that provided that spark to begin with, Alex Lyon, who triggered that late season 6-game winning streak. Looked like he was going to. We thought we'd never see Bobrovsky again.
I was very happy.
Yeah,
Bobrovsky again.
That the next time we'd see Bobrovsky was at some Russian parade when they finally decided to get rid of Putin and end the war in Ukraine. No, which isn't happening anytime soon. It's great. And how weird of a story would it be if Sergei Bobrovsky ended up carrying the Panthers to their only Stanley Cup? What would we have to do to make amends for the hideous things that we said about that guy who was a butt of every joke, right? Stevie Wonder, Ray Charles, Jose Feliciano. He should put a beached whale in there, a sumo wrestler. I mean, any derisive thing that we could say about Sergei Bobrovsky, not knowing anything about him. He may be a wonderful man. He probably is, right? What do you think, Libby? Sweetheart of a guy?
Bobrovsky, I'm sure he's. I don't care. I'm sure he's a nice guy. I guess I don't really give a shit about who he is as a person. And if he keeps winning, I'll be happy. Good, you're getting paid. I don't know what it is in hockey terms, but goalie terms, supposedly it's still a good amount of money.
Oh, $10 million a year is humongous there in the
Thank God, finally you're earning your contract. I don't feel bad. Like, you've been getting paid for years. It's about time. Like, Jesus.
He had 2 reasonably decent seasons, after that first horrendous year, and then he bounced back and looked like he was in year 1 with the Panthers form most of this season until they got, I guess, past the All-Star break, which that wasn't like basketball where it came when the season was over, the All-Star break. No, they took that, but it was kind of past the midway point. No,
it was around.
All right, so Bobrovsky, the narrative was that he had played much better, even though he got injured towards the end of the year, and that's how they ended up with Lion in the pipes. And then they discovered this gem of a journeyman who was, writing his own Cinderella Man story. I mean, that guy was James J. Brannick, right? A bust-out guy that's been in the league for a while, but you never heard of him. Playing only like 35 games, and all of a sudden he's carrying his team on his back to the postseason. a team that was about to embarrass itself and miss the playoffs after being the best team in the league during the regular season last year. Interesting stuff, though Louis. And the fact they bounced back, won that game, and then hauled on with Bobrovsky, literally doing the cliched thing, standing on his head in the third period. Pretty incredible. And now 2 games away with, you're looking at, 5 swings to win 2 games. Can he do it, Lubie? What do you think? What's the prediction here? Are we already going past Toronto and looking ahead to the
I'm not.
Carolina Devils winner?
I mean, you can. I'm not doing that. Look, they're up 2-0 coming home. So there's literally no better position you can be in. They won a game definitively. They came back in a game, so they're winning in all ways. Paul Maurice, the French Joe Philbin, is looking more like he's Don Juan.
He's looking like Lombardi, man.
I was going to say the French Vince, but you don't know. I mean, they struggled at home versus the Bruins. They're a fucking weird team. So I'm not putting hockey's a weird sport, and I don't think they needed to do that stupid ass policy. I don't know.
No, that's a disgrace.
I think they're going to be packed. I think South Florida does take time, good or bad, good fans, bad fans, call it whatever the hell you want. They take time, but once they get in, they get in. And up 2-0, second round of the playoffs versus a Canadian team, I think it's going to be fucking insane. I just win 1. Like, if they can split 1, then yes. If they go up 3-1.
I mean, obviously, that's, the mission here. You did yourself a huge monumental favor by winning that game too. All right, now your concerns are, and literally, you could almost accept splitting these 2 games, and still feeling very good about the chances of the Florida Panthers, despite the fact they just beat a team that was in the same circumstance. All right, we're coming back with more. The Heat in action tomorrow, finally again. I forgot about that series. Did you? Lakers get blown out last night. Suns in action tonight, down 2-0 to Denver, not looking too swift. Chris Paul going to be missing his game. And they don't have a lot of depth after making the Durant acquisition.
They don't have really any depth. They have Cameron Payne. That's their depth.
They were looking for Steve Nash, maybe, to come in there and play a few minutes, I think. So, and that's still on tap. And the Heat and the Knicks, Knicks fans, you're not hearing a lot of bravado from the Knicks fans, are you?
Well, it's weird because a lot of them are rational, but then there's these, there's a contingent that sees Knicks in 5. So I'm like, okay, I don't know how you
life and death to beat the Heat in that last game at the Garden after losing in embarrassing fashion.
Game had nothing. Like, literally, there's no Hero, no Oladipo, no Butler, and then in the game, Strus and Martin got hurt. We're hanging with them or leading the entire time, and the Knicks had their entire team, and all looked fine. But I don't know what was wrong with Randall before, but he didn't show any signs, and I don't know what was supposedly wrong with Brunson because he looked perfectly fine.
No, he looked fine.
At home in the Garden, that supposedly, as Stephen A. says, the scariest place to play, even though people dominate the Knicks there each and every time they play. But supposedly it's scary to play there. Like, I don't know. I don't know how they get there, but Knicks fans are really good at being cocky, even though they haven't won in like fucking 20 years.
All right, well, we'll see. A lot of weird stuff happening. There's an Alabama baseball coach got fired. Supposedly he's on the horn to some better in New Jersey, and he yanks his scheduled starter and puts some guy that had pitched 2/3 of an inning in relief in to start a game against LSU in Baton Rouge, right? And the Crimson Tide goes down there, and somebody makes a big, very unusual score in a college baseball game. Who the hell has been in college baseball?
Between
PC, only a crazy man would bet college baseball, right?
I didn't know you could. Between Nate Oates and the way he mishandled that entire fucking thing, and now this guy. Alabama's fun.
Yeah. Baseball coach is literally calling a guy that's, making outrageously large bets that raised such red flags that caused an investigation. And the investigation has him on the phone with this bettor, supposedly, the way the story goes.
Was he throwing games? Is that what it is?
Well, I mean, it reeks of impropriety there, doesn't it? Where he told his starter who was scheduled that an hour before the game that he wasn't starting, and named this other guy as a starting pitcher. I don't know if that was right after these bets were placed, but I mean, I don't follow it to enough of a level to know how significant that would be. But I would think, when the Canes had a couple of really good starters at the top of their rotation, And, all of a sudden you're going to throw some guy that is in middle relief out there to start the game. Forget it. Looks like a tank job. All right, we're going to get to the bottom of a bunch of weird stuff that happened at the Kentucky Derby and also get an opinion on the race now that it's kind of been reshaped a little bit. Caton Bredar going to join us from Louisville in just a moment. Now that. The time. It's 7:45.
Folks, Tony Segreto here. Let me ask you a question. What do you look for when you go out to eat? Good food, obviously, friendly atmosphere, not too loud, but good energy, reasonable prices, and a place where you feel comfortable. All those ingredients, no pun meant there, are hard to find unless you're talking about the Texas Roadhouse. You see, they encompass all of those attributes. Really, really good food, amazing atmosphere, good for a family, good for a date, or just a night out for yourself, and prices that will make you extremely happy. Their ribs unmatched. Steaks hand cut every day. Everything, and I mean everything, is made on site, including their incredible bread. It's the one day, folks, that you can forget about low-carb diets. Trust me when I tell you, Texas Roadhouse, your restaurant, your destination when you say, where should we go and eat tonight?
From the newly renovated sports bar to the beautiful bayside views captured at the Tiki Bar, Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill has it all. Located at mile marker 104, the Big Chill also offers waterfront dining while experiencing breathtaking sunset views of the Florida Keys. It's simply the hottest spot in the Keys to cool off. That's Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill at mile marker 104 in Key Largo. For more information, call today at 305-453-9066.
This comes from the great Defo Lama. It's the bets you don't make, the chances you don't take, that can compromise an otherwise incredible life, my friend.
The only way to get your morning started is with Defo, joined by Lubie, right here on The Defo Show.
All right, without question, the most glorious day in all of degeneracy is the day of the Kentucky Derby, that first Saturday in May. And it's your chance to make a score of a lifetime. And we're going to try and shoot it out to Louisville, Kentucky here in just a sec, because there's a ton of stuff going on there. And not all of it necessarily great news, although it's always good news to get a chance to speak with this lovely young lady who does such a tremendous job at everything she does and is a delight to watch on TV and great to know as well. We welcome to the show the lovely Caton Bredar. Caton, I guess, you probably had some early wake-up calls today and, maybe some reassignments. I saw you talking to the people at the Derby about how wonderful it is to be there, and then all of this stuff broke yesterday. So what kind of chaos or pandemonium took place in your reporting life yesterday?
Yeah, it was kind of the craziest day we've had in quite some time as far as Derby weekends are concerned.
Yeah.
We find out first that Practical Move has gotten a fever and he's out, and that means Cyclone Mischief is in. So I went back and spoke to Tim Yakteam with that defection, and so that's always a little bit tricky to go back to the barn and talk to somebody about their horse not getting to run in the Derby. And then we came back, and a little later in the afternoon, the press release comes out that basically all the Sappy Joseph horses, including the Derby horse, has been scratched. And that meant, though, that from the Japanese camp that their horse, Mandarin Hero, gets in. He had been hoping. And then late last night, and we kind of heard that this was going to happen, the other Japanese horse, one of them, Constant Noir, is out. They decided that it would be pressing it too much. He just wasn't quite as lively as they had wanted him to be at this point. And that meant that the last one, King Russell, gets in for Ron Moquette, which the only thing I can say about all of it, Jeff, is that right after King Russell finished second in the Arkansas Derby, I sent a text message to Ron Moquette saying, the Derby is better if you're in it, because he's such a good guy and so much fun. And I just thought the horse was tremendous. Plus, I cashed a bet on him, so I'm not going to lie. And then only to find out, I really didn't think he was going to get to run. So
wow,
you just never know about any of this.
No, it's great. And I saw you talking on the backstretch with Yakteam, and obviously it's very depressing because this, and we were talking about it earlier, Caton, because the idea of impropriety taking place. Is that necessarily an implication about Safi Joseph with the suspension, or should that not have had some clarification or qualifiers that look? We don't know that anything subversive happened here, but just we're taking extra precautions. There may be something just inherently wrong, with horses in his barn for some bizarre reason. Mayo was speculating that horses had COVID, and this could be one of those reactions to that, even though the symptoms at the time or whatever, or the problems might have been mild. What do you make? I mean, what should we think about this
You know
story?
what? Here's the thing, though. I'm not. I think that in every instance, and this is kind of how I live my life. So, I mean, others would take issue with this, but I kind of feel like, you give people the benefit of the doubt until there's proof otherwise, right?
Yeah.
So, and I liken it to two people in the same household having heart attacks within a couple of days of each other.
Yeah.
Is it unusual? Yeah, pretty unusual. Could it just be randomly that two people ended up in that situation, and in this case, two horses? Yes, it's very possible. So I think that, though, and I don't blame. I mean, they don't do what I tell them to do, so
Yeah.
that never works. But I think that I understand what is trying to be done here, which is to just provide every safeguard and precaution to make sure that there isn't anything else to the story. And it's unfortunate. And I feel worst of all, not just for Safi's team, but for the owners. The owner of Lord Miles is a very, very nice man who's been involved in the business for a very long time. And my heart aches for him, but I do understand why the powers that be took the actions that they did, because it's very strange situation. You just don't see something like that happen very often.
No, and it came on the heels of Wild on Ice having to be euthanized, and I know our friend John out in Prairie Meadows. Was all excited that Ken Tohill was going to have a mount, and one of these horses from that area of the country was going to get a chance to run in the Derby, and then it's heartbreaking, and you see all that story, and you thought, well, that's a tough way to start the Derby week, and then all of this broke yesterday, and it was just chaotic to try and follow, and not everybody is sure, what to think of it, but anyway, those Safi Joseph horses won't be running, or the horse that he had entered in the Derby. All right, so a lot of changes there, Caton. One thing that we've noticed, Lubie and I, you know how certain we are in our handicapping methods, and we're willing to listen to anybody and everybody that might have an opinion on the race.
Pretty much.
We respect yours greatly, which is why we love having you on the program, as do many people around the country that enjoy the show and enjoy your work. But we've mentioned every horse as a possibility so far.
Yeah, how do you decipher?
Are you somewhere in that same very rocky boat of trying to narrow this down, or do you have any level of certainty as to what might transpire?
I don't, and but I let me just say this though. There are a couple horses that have been on my radar for a long time, and they continue to be. So in that regard, there are a couple that I like, but do I feel strongly that I can make a case against some of the others? No, not really. This is one of the strangest, and in a way, it's wonderful because to me, the beauty of the Derby is the opportunity to cash a big ticket or to have a horse at a big price come in or something, So it would be boring if the favorite won every year. Although the one interesting thing is this year, the horse that's been talked about the least is probably going to be the favorite, and that's Forte. You just don't hear too many people talking much about him. You have a few people who are knocking him, but I will tell you, I cannot completely eliminate him, but I'm not picking him on top. I'm picking a stablemate. I like Tapit Trice. He's the one that I've had the stronger opinion of all along, and this could be the undoing of all of us because this is one of the situations where the horse you see the most is the horse that you gravitate towards.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like your kids playing. Well, after a while, you kind of get attached to them, and so Tapit Trice is. I saw him for each of his races when he won at Gulfstream in the Allowance Company, and at that point, Larry Colmus said, "I think I just saw my Derby horse," and he said it on air on FanDuel TV, and then he came back, and I was at the Tampa Bay Derby when he won, and that was amazing fashion.
Yeah.
It didn't look to me like he had a shot, and all of a sudden he just levitates and takes off. And then in the Bluegrass, I was there, and that one, in my opinion, was a vastly improved race over the last couple. He only got up by a nose over Verifying, but again, I didn't think he was going to win at all. And then he gets it done. And he's a very laid back kind of horse. He's pretty cool compared to Forte, who gets kind of pumped up in the paddock and everything. So I'm all in on Tapit Trice as my top pick, using Forte. And then the other horses that I don't know what to do with that I'm including in my top picks are Disarm, who everyone has told me is not fast enough to win this race. But he looks like Gunrunner. He's about 150 pounds bigger, but he does everything the way Gunrunner did. So he'll probably run third because that's what Gunrunner did.
Yeah.
Before going on to be better. The one thing about him, though, is Steve describes it as not being focused in the paddock. But I would say that that's sort of an understatement. What he does is he falls in love as soon as he walks in the paddock and likes to show off. He is extremely studdish, and not in an aggressive way, more in a playful way. But he still doesn't have his mind on business. He seems to have his mind on a lot of other things. He's almost like
It could be respected, yes. Yeah. I mean,
So,
I respect that approach. All right, Disarm. So that adds another one to the list. I think that was the one horse that we hadn't mentioned as a possibility to win a race.
Now you have, but then you can give it to me if he.
All right. Well, you mentioned our horse, our secret horse. The Polyman for many years, and he has a tremendous track record in handicapping the Derby. He had a stretch where he came up with one bomb after another, and it was great, very profitable for all of us. It might be the one race, Kate, that I'm ahead lifetime in betting, the Kentucky Derby, mostly due to the maximum security takedown and the inflated trifecta that we got when they put Country House on top, but. There's going to be that possibility here, I would think, even if one of these favorites comes in, because Forte is ice cold on the board. As we thought, maybe this horse, be 8-5, and maybe even after that win in the Florida Derby, might be going off odds on in this race. But the public so far is following in your thought process, it seems, and not necessarily giving this horse much of a shot. I saw him come into the paddock, and I was watching, you'll find this out, I was watching FanDuel TV in the afternoon, and they were schooling, I guess, these horses in the paddock. And Forte walked in, and he looked like Roger Federer in that tuxedo he wore to the Met Gala. I mean, the horse looks the part, doesn't he? He may get a little skittish during the race, but he looked like a monster.
No, you know what? It's similar to the Florida Derby, and don't let people tell you otherwise. That they say, "Oh, he gets too worked up in the paddock." That's not true. What he did in the Florida Derby was he was great in the paddock. He looked amazing. As soon as the rider got up on him, he got a little amped up, even more amped up. When he got out on the track and they had the horses on the track for a long period of time, which happens in these big races, he got even more pumped up. And it was a warm day, but they have been working on him, and in the paddock especially, it's not nerves. It's more of a playful, like Ali on his toes kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I think that I don't think that you can, in my opinion, I'm not knocking him for that. If he doesn't win, to me, it's not going to be because of what happened pre-race. It's going to be because of something that happens in the course of the race, or maybe he doesn't get the distance, because honestly, that's the one question mark. Although to me, it looks like he's run just fine at longer distances, but he's the only offspring of violence who has ever won at a distance of ground. So, of course, there haven't been that many, but right now his pedigree is relatively unproven. for sure at the 1.25 miles.
How much do you let post position affect what you do? If you like a horse or a couple horses coming into the race, especially the Derby, and then you look and historically the 2 never wins, the 17 never wins. There's like 5 positions that never win. And this horse you love and you really have good feelings about gets one of those positions, even though historically that position does really hasn't won in 50 years. Does it deter you from that horse? What do you do with that?
No, you know what? So I go the opposite approach. I'm like, everything will happen at least once at some time.
Yeah.
So I don't worry about.
I'm boxing a 1-2 exacta.
Right. And here's the thing about the 1 hole. For years, this is really interesting. Really, nobody talks about this. If you crawl back in the history of the Derby, in the older runnings, for years and years, 1 was one of the most successful post positions. Then we got into bigger fields, auxiliary gate, a lot of other factors, and in kind of a change in race styles too, and more aggressive riding with an impact on speed early and position early. And suddenly the 1 was a kiss of death. And in part that was because of the position of the gate. And in part because I mean, it's just natural that if you have a 20 horse field and horses start to bunch and things like that, the guy odd man out is usually going to be the one that's on the farthest inside. But it doesn't always work that way. And now that they have the new gate, which holds all 20 horses, it's positioned a little bit differently. The 1 hole is not as big a disadvantage as it used to be. I mean, I think it depends on the horse. And a lot has been made about Tapit Trice because he gets out of the gate fine and then he doesn't have any speed. So he loses position immediately out of the gate. And saying that the inside posts are going to be bad for him because it's going to be harder for him, Luis Saez, to get him to the outside. But I say Derby is chaos. If you will make yourself crazy trying to predict what's going to play out of the starting gate. The truth is, Tyler Gaffalione, I spent the morning on the backstretch with him. He was touring for the Backside Learning Center. And let me just tell you, he's one of the best guys in racing as far as jockeys go. He came in on a day he didn't have to work horses when he was going to ride a full card and met some people who had supported the Backside Learning Center. And so he toured and spent the morning with them. But he told me that the best day or best trip he ever had in the Derby was from the 1 post position.
Wow.
So it's just the way it works. It's, sometimes the chaos happens in the middle. Sometimes it happens to the outside. If a horse, I don't like a horse with speed being parked all the way in post 20. I wouldn't like that for 19 because I think that's really you got to get past everybody, clear, have everything perfect and get over. If Tapit tries to run the 1, I might be a little bit more concerned, but I think the 5 is fine.
Hey, Caton, it's Mayo here joining us for the morning. How are you today? And everybody's talking Derby. We got a big race on tap today. Let's not forget the fillies. I was going to ask, Oaks Day is huge, and I have a lot of fun the times I've been up in Louisville. Oaks Day is in many ways more preferable. Do you have any handicapping opinions on the Oaks? Because I love that Oaks Derby double, too.
I do too. That was the only bet I cashed last year.
Wow.
It was enough because
Not bad.
Yeah, if you get a long shot like we did last year and I just lucked into it because I just hit the all button. I love Secret Oath in the Oaks, and I used everybody in the Derby because I didn't have a strong opinion, and we got the best case scenario. So that can happen. You got to have a strong opinion someplace, and I'm a little worried about that part of it. But I picked Botanical, and this is interesting because Brad Cox has won the Oaks twice before, and he'll have 2 of the stronger contenders, in my opinion. But Wet Paint is the favorite, and there's no reason she can't win. She's undefeated at Oaklawn. She swept the filly races. Historically, the Oaks fillies are a bit more true to form and consistent than the Derby colts. So theoretically, Wet Paint should be a very strong contender, but she's a little teeny tiny thing and she does her best running from off the pace. And to me, the Oaks is usually geared toward a little bit more speed than say even the Derby necessarily. And on this field, I don't think I don't think it's going to be a huge, really, really lightning fast pace early. So I think she might be a little bit up against it. I like her. I'm using her in trifectas and things, but Botanical, her stablemate, who's trying the dirt for the first time, is who I'm going with. She's trained unbelievably. She's bred to handle the dirt, no problem. And she is a bit more tactical. And she should have no trouble with the distance at all. Stepping up a little bit from the 1 1/16. Also, Brad Cox's son is the agent for the jockey who rides Botanical, so this definitely would be keeping it in the family. Chris Landeros is represented by Bryson Cox. So, but I really, my only concern with Botanical is that she was made 4-1 on the morning line, which I didn't see coming. I really thought that she'd be a big price because she's never run on the dirt. So if she's less than, I'm definitely playing her in Oaks Derby doubles and in any multi-race wagers and things like that. But as far as betting her to win, if she really is that short, I don't think she will be, but if she is, then I can't bet on her to win. The horse that looks, Gabby Gaudette is married to Norm Cassie and is my colleague at FanDuel, and her husband has South Lawn, and I actually think South Lawn has a very, very good chance. She was winner of the Fairgrounds Oaks, and that historically has been a really good race for the Oaks. And she did it the right way. She can stalk. She's moving in the right direction. They did throat surgery on her over the winter, and it worked so far. She corrected the breathing problem, and she has been perfect in 2 starts. So, and we're also rooting for her and Raylu Gutierrez. So South Lawn and Botanical and Wet Paint are like my top 3 horses. And if you want a long shot to throw in their defining purpose, I might use underneath.
There we go. Thanks.
I wish you knew your stuff, Caton. I mean, that was brilliant.
What?
Any speculation, any odds on what Johnny Weir will be wearing? I know you have to run, but anything on that front?
No, I can't tell you that one. And but I hope he takes a cue from all of us, because we are all wearing comfortable shoes. It's tennis shoes for everybody.
Oh, good thinking.
It's been a long week and a long day.
I don't think he owns a pair, Johnny Weir.
Probably not.
Brilliant stuff. I mean, great job. I was thinking on my walk of life yesterday, the FanDuel crew of especially female analysts and sportscasters is as good as you will find in any sport anywhere. I mean, really, really a talented bunch of people that you work with. You mentioned your colleagues, and it's a pleasure to watch on TV.
I got one more quickly. I know she's got to run, but with all these scratches and now horses getting in, does everybody move over a post position and all our post position analysis and the minutia go out the window, or what happens? Do those other horses?
Now we have a full gate, and so the horses that were on the also eligibles that move in, all 3 of them just slide into those. They come into the outside.
18, 19, 20. So Forte is really going to be now in the number 14 hole, not the 15 hole?
Correct.
Okay. So all our jinxes and things, we have to actually recalibrate because we did it all based on the early draw. So, okay. Interesting.
Well, and you have to keep in mind that that's something that when they talk about no horses won from the 17 post, well, you got to dig to figure out, does that really mean no horses won from the 17 post, or does that mean no horses won wearing the 17 saddle belt?
Right.
Right. There you go.
It's and that's another reason why I pay absolutely no attention.
Interesting.
Beautiful. Yeah. All right. So we'll stick with verifying. We thought the horse would get buried on the rail. Caton, always a pleasure. Thank you so much. I know you've been busy.
Yeah,
and
verifying. I got to tell you, Jeff, verifying is the nice guy play, and I can't thank Tyler enough for what he did. And if he were to win, I told him it's good karma. So I will be personally responsible for verifying overcoming the inside post position because of Tyler. So
an omen, perhaps. That bolsters and emboldens us to be inclined to go ahead and at least use this horse in all of our exotic thinking. Thanks so much. What time will you be on today? Because you've been doing a brilliant job over there at Churchill.
We start at 10 a.m. Eastern, and we stop. We do the first 5 races on the program. Then our partners at NBC step in for their coverage, and then we'll be back on for the last 2 after the Oaks.
Okay, sounds good. We'll look forward to seeing you. You always do a great job and brilliant stuff as always. Thanks so much for joining us, Caton. And I know you've been very busy, so we really appreciate it.
Oh, thanks. You guys take care. Good luck.
Caton.
All right, thanks a lot. There you go, Mike Mayo. I mean, Mike Mayo joins us in the midst of that, which was great. Did you not also cash? I mean, I don't have that kind of luck. If I had wheeled that horse in the Oaks, of course, the 3 to 5 shot would have won the next day in the Derby. You could have etched that in stone. I mean, but how great is that when the biggest long shot? I mean, a complete balloon comes in on the back end. I don't think that horse in the Oaks that she played was favored last year.
No.
Mayo's doing something else.
I'm sorry. I was totally
Passing out there, man. Nice. I'm glad you joined us, Mike.
had a cinnamon roll, and that sugar just kind of knocked me out.
Oh, rolling on. You're like one of the Safi Joseph horses.
No, I was looking at odds and jockeys and stuff, and I'm just still figuring out all the post positions now because, again, with those 3 scratches,
don't you have to box the also eligibles? I mean,
oh yeah, I always, you know
yeah.
me, I always play the AEs. I usually always throw 5 to win in place on every AE that gets in a race. So,
All right,
that,
so
that
there's
means I got
another 30
out the window.
Got to hope one of these pigs runs third. Yeah.
And what this means with those 3 getting in the 18, 19, and 20 posts, it means basically all those other ones that outside of number 10, Practical Move is out. So everybody slides up one from numbers 11 through, I guess, 18. Anyway, yeah, like she said, you know what? The better analysis is, and I totally sidestepped your question about the Oaks, and yes, it was a big price last week. I'm a little scared right now because every horse that Caton mentioned in both races, I've like basically thrown out.
That's my
well, and then here's another bad omen for your selection here of King's Barnes, which this guy who's been ice cold, Vic Cangelosi in the New York Post is their handicapper. Which, I mean, it's not easy to do, right? You're picking horses at Aqueduct and Belmont and Saratoga probably, 2 days before the race? It's not the easiest thing to do. You don't get a chance to see the horses or anything like that. But he has King's Barnes running second. This guy's been ice cold. He was 0 for the meeting at Aqueduct. All of his best bets lost. His locks all lost. He lost every day. He puts a couple of selections in there that he wants you to pound with like a $30 wager. They were all up the track. So while in the midst of this ice-cold streak, now could this be the turning point? What do you think?
Well, no,
he has his horse getting the lead and hanging on.
He's going to the lead. There's no doubt about it. King's Barnes has natural speed, and from the 6 hole, he's going to be going for the front. Now, whether Pletcher is just using him as kind of a rabbit and just figuring he'll have better days at more, speed favoring tracks with shorter fields, aka Pimlico and the Preakness, which I bet him in the futures at 18 to 1. King's Barnes. What I'm encouraged by, I don't know if he could go the distance. It depends on who presses him and the whole thing. But because nobody, I think, has gone wire to wire since winning colors, if I recall. But the bottom line is there are 3 Todd Pletcher entrants in this race. I believe King's Barnes is going to go off as the highest price of the 3. Right. And one of my other angles, besides also playing also eligibles, is always play the highest price of any Pletcher uncoupled entry, even if it's
any trainer
3
for that
horses.
matter.
Yeah. And whether it's 2, 3, or 4 horses, like now in this case, it means even though I don't like Tapit Trice, I want to throw him out. But when I hear everybody in the world, picking him, including that's been your horse all along, right, Defo? Tapit Trice.
Never liked the horse.
He says it every time.
But I got to use all 3 of them, and now it's like I need a bigger bankroll. I need a bigger boat. I don't know, how do you play this race?
It's going to have to be a little arbitrary luck involved here because you can make a zillion cases for a lot of different horses, including the ice cold action on Forte. You were saying this horse was going to be odds on, but
no, I never said odds on. I thought he was going to go off at 2 to 1. I'm shocked that he's 5 to 1. That's to me is like giving away. At that price, I'm willing to look like a fool. I don't care if he runs a bad race. I think he's a monster. He has a striking appearance. He's done nothing wrong. He was in deep waters and still won the Florida Derby when we all thought he was hopelessly beat, and he still found a way to win.
He looked like the Panthers in the first period.
Yeah, exactly. And okay, I know the number guys don't like him, the Sheets guys, whatever. I mean, to me, when you've got a talented horse, I'm willing to kind of ride him until he does something wrong. Maybe this will be the race where he has bad luck and throws in a clunker. But at 5-1, I think I might be using
Very
some of your
generous.
money.
Yeah.
Your May dividends from the lunchbox might be going into this horse. You don't know it yet, but payday is not till the 31st.
There's no acknowledgement of a partnership, and I will be right behind Ed Sheeran suing your ass in court if you plunge on this horse. No, I don't know. I mean, look, it's hard to leave out Forte. It's hard to leave out Tappa Trice. And then you have what now 18 others, and you can probably make a case, a pretty good case for at least a dozen of them. I mean, we've had people do so. So where do you go? And there obviously are compromising elements in this thing also, but gonna be a lot of fun. What did you make of the story, Mr. Investigative Reporter? I mean, what did you make of this whole Safi Joseph thing?
He's just as cynical as anyone. He's actually the king of sins.
You would naturally suspect that Sublimaze was involved here, but you have like an equine Dr. Fauci theory that we.
Well, yeah, I want to give
yesterday.
Safi the benefit of the doubt. I mean, he's well liked at Gulfstream. Obviously, when a guy comes in from seemingly out of nowhere, and he was training in the islands, and
it was Frank Passero, right? Was the
Frank
guy, and all of a
Passero
sudden
was the guy.
He'd been around for a while. All of a sudden, all of his horses started winning like crazy.
Yeah, he started winning a couple of years during the winter meet at Gulfstream at like a 40% clip, and he used to be just a claiming trainer.
Woody Stevens had an 8% winning percentage.
And next thing you know, I'm checking my own balls, and whoa, there's some hot pepper on them, and it's
yeah, really. I mean, pass those chili peppers, sweetheart. Yeah, exactly.
Me, all you usually have to do is stick a finger up my ass, and I'm ready to run. But
Jesus.
I didn't need to know that, Michael. Yeah,
I didn't want to know that.
All of a sudden, again, another Last Tango in Paris reference. What the hell?
Hold the margarine.
You were going to come on and talk about the Panthers.
I got him. I finally got him. All right. So Safi, look, I don't know. He obviously, he's had success at Gulfstream at the winter meet, and he's been usually based here year round. But in the last few years,
were there not suspicions that when he first popped on the scene? Though, you always hear this about guys. Yeah, that he's got to be doing something. How the hell is he winning like that?
Oh, he's got the juice, so something's going on, because that's natural racetrack behavior. When somebody starts having success, they immediately assume the worst.
You assume Sammy Sosa's the groom. Yeah, exactly.
McGuire is the trainer.
All I know is, look, Safi has won some big races and he's diversified. Now he's got some high-profile owners, and
he won the Wood Memorial, for God's sake.
Yeah, he won the Wood Memorial. He won last year's Florida Derby with White Abarrio, who was supposed to be running on tomorrow's undercard of the Derby. I was looking forward to actually betting him.
Sayonara to that. Yeah.
And again, now, look, in this day and age, everybody is skittish again because of the external pressures on horse racing. You do have the animal rights activist crowd that's calling for the wholesale abolition of the sport. You have very jittery overseeing oversight boards, along with people that run racetracks. Look what happened in Maryland a couple of weeks ago. Remember, there was a couple of breakdowns.
They shut the track down
at Laurel, and they just pulled the plug on racing for like 5 days, a full week, until they've sorted out what was going on. Is the racetrack safe? Those were breakdowns. This is a kind of a mixed bag where you've had these, partial horses breaking down after training with, leg injuries, and then two of these Safi runners having these bizarre post-workout heart attacks. Now, it happens in racing where sometimes you get these one-offs where a horse has some sort of, undetectable birth defect heart condition, like you see sometimes with basketball players.
It happens in the NFL.
NFL players. Irregular heartbeats and goofy things happen. But when you have two from the same barn going down back to back, then people start saying there are no coincidences. I floated the theory just because we are in this still post-COVID world. We don't know.
That was your theory, or a theory that you picked up from a reputable source?
No, this was completely out of my own.
Oh, okay. All right.
Okay.
No, and again,
I thought it sounded kind of funky and very Fauci-esque.
Well, no, here's what we know. We know that animals have tested positive for COVID. And in some cases, like with household pets, dogs and cats, that, they've tested positive for COVID. And some cases have been shown that maybe they spread it and they don't get the same symptoms and maybe have the same results as humans. But it's also I've read about cases where horses have tested positive for COVID, and they said that the symptoms in horses are mild and they don't get that whole chest congestion and difficulty breathing. But what we don't know about COVID, well, what we do know about it in humans is that it causes all kinds of bizarre inflammatory things, and that it also causes some people to have heart problems, after the fact, after getting COVID, that they might have some sort of heart disease. It was also one of the things associated with some of the vaccines, because some of those vaccines mimic COVID, and some people had. I'm riffing here. I don't know. All I'm saying is that
Very scientific.
necropsies need to be done. And it would be interesting because, who knows that, maybe one of the things of post-COVID, and again, I lost a dear friend this year. He never got a vaccine. He might have had COVID at some point, asymptomatic, but it did something to his heart muscle and something. I don't know. I mean, we didn't have an autopsy in that case, but in these
You're
cases,
scaring me now, Mayo. You really are. I mean, I had a little brief bout with COVID, and all of a sudden, I'm having all kinds of inflammation problems.
Well,
who knows? Is it going to be check, please? I mean, maybe I should just go to the Savvy Joseph barn and take whatever they're taking for this stuff.
There's things we don't know about this disease, both in humans and animals. And, I had my own scare with my PSA levels. It all of a sudden shot up last year after I knew I had COVID. And they were checking for all the, cancer. I was going for all these biopsies. Next thing you know, this year, my PSA levels dropped more than a full point back down. So maybe it was a post-COVID inflation.
It could have been all those sandwiches. I mean, it really could have been. Especially that one yesterday, man. That was an heroic effort. We even got messages on other forms of social media from our good friend Sheldon Glass, who watches the Lunchbox out in Las Vegas, and he thought that was right out of the Three Stooges, the way that that you were performing on the show yesterday was great. All right, what did you think about the hockey game? I went for my walk of life after it was 2-0. I walked out the door thinking, this is not going well. There was immense pressure on Bobrovsky. He looked like he was about to crack. And then the Maple Leafs went on another power play. So as I was walking out the door, I'm thinking, well, let me see what happens here. They'll either go up 3-0, or maybe there'll be a little bit of a momentum shift here happening if the Panthers can somehow stave off this early game onslaught. But I was more than ready to throw in the towel early in the game and think this was going to be a disaster. What are we looking at here? Is it possible that Sergei Bobrovsky could lead the Panthers to a Stanley Cup, their only championship in team history? And how much ridicule have we thrown this man's way? How much shade have we cast upon this man's reputation, Mike Mayo?
I don't mind eating crow on him and apologizing. With Doug
we're all wrong about him. It ain't like it's just you, yeah.
I'm not apologizing.
Hey, before we get into the Panthers and talking about the bad starts, earlier this show, you had me on the floor when you say to the woman, when's the baby due?
Yeah.
She's not pregnant. How do you get out of that? What do you do?
There's no way
just
out.
leave?
There's no way out. What do you say?
You mutter to yourself and you walk away, and that relationship's ruined forever.
You feel like an asshole.
I say there's only two options. One is just walking away and say, I'm sorry, I got to go now. Just make the quick exit.
I was doing a radio show. I couldn't leave.
Or number two is, oh, well, in that case, how about I buy you a drink?
I swear to God. I mean, look, I wouldn't have said it if it wasn't like definitive to me that this woman was like about to give birth, maybe in the bar that day. And it didn't. She didn't have the body type that would, it literally, it looked like she had swallowed like a medicine ball. Okay,
maybe
not
she
even
was
a basketball.
hanging out with me and just eating lunch with me every day because I got a basketball.
But she didn't appear to be a woman that would be, like overweight, except for the fact that she was pregnant.
Very bizarre. Just as last night's game was, because like you, Defo. Okay, well, two things. Number one, I also wrote the game off after they were down 2-0 in like 3 minutes, and I texted Lubie like, "Oh well, on to the next game." But number two, I didn't shut the game off and I didn't leave because there's something about this Panther team that says, they're pretty resilient.
Yeah.
They hang around. And if somehow they get the next goal, if it doesn't turn into 3-0, if it's 2-1, then this game is back in play. And sure enough, that's what happened. And this is a team now, down 3-1 against the best team in hockey ever, and they win 3 straight. And going into this game where everybody in the world, outside of South Florida is kind of rooting for the sad sack Maple Leafs. And here they go. They go into their building, their barn,
Crush 'em.
and crush crush their hopes and dreams. And again, the way Bobrovsky played after the first 3 minutes last night, I mean, that was scintillating. He got a little bit lucky because there were some times where it was clanging off
A few clankers,
crossbars,
yeah.
and things were sliding just past. But lucky and good is a pretty potent combination in the playoffs. And now you feel like he's turned the corner mentally. The team in front of him is like they believe in him and they believe in themselves. And Kachuk is just the fighter and the spark plug that they need.
They're
And
swashbuckling
even
at this point.
Barkov made some
Yeah.
good plays.
Yeah, Barkov actually didn't suck for one.
It's all happening now, and this is the team that they were envisioning. Obviously they didn't have Kachuk last year; they still had Huberdeau, but that this is the team they thought were going to be in the playoffs last year, a real threat, and now we get it this year with reconfigured new coach who I like. You got to ditch this Joe Philbin. I mean, did you see that mid-game interview?
That's an unfair characterization.
He's
Because
not.
he seems to be. He's more like James Bond. This guy.
Yes.
He was
Yeah.
hugging Darren Pang when doing
Yeah.
this in the middle of the game. It wasn't even in between periods. They were like the players skating on the ice, and he's like loose as a goose. The players are shooting craps in the locker room between
Yeah.
periods. They show those cut-ins.
He's very
meanwhile-
confident. He's very confident.
And they show the Maple Leafs, and they're
Yeah.
like studying. They have every line up there.
Yeah.
They're like got their notepads out. And the crowd. Let me bash the crowd for a second up there, because it wasn't that like when they I think the Leafs got a power play when they're down 3-2 at the sometime in the third period, and that's the point where most arenas would just be buzzing, the fans would explode, trying to rally the
Well,
team.
and they put a lot of pressure on during that power play, as I recall.
But the fans were just sitting on their hands, like they were at the opera house, and they had the little field binoculars out, and they were just scrutinizing. They're not into they're very obviously aware, educated hockey fans, but they just
They're
seem
too sophisticated.
muted, and they were like me at a restaurant. They were
It's like you at a
perusing the
fine dining place versus you at Skyline Chili, where you can let yourself be a slob,
menu. and they
which is your
weren't-
true nature. And then you have to pretend that you have some kind of refined dining a style when you're in certain places, because you're Mike Mayo, a food critic, and you
But they
can't
were-
look like the slob that you really are, which is great.
But these guys, and because they're Canadian, they're too polite to boo. Even though at some point you would think if this was Philly or Boston or New York,
Oh, they would
the
have
fans
turned
would
on
be
their
throwing
team.
the
Yeah.
raspberries and
Exactly.
just booing. And
There would have been
and
cans of Labatt's on the ice. I mean,
instead, it was just sitting there at the opera house, and I'm like, wow, this is weird. It's a weird dynamic for a home crowd, and the Panthers are able to basically seize on it and keep them quiet the whole time.
What would your city desk editorial be about this Panther policy here, about trying to ban non-residents? Which a friend of mine was posting on social media what a disgrace this is, because she's a Toronto Maple Leafs fan from Toronto, lives down here now, and her thought was this: that when you're trying to sell 8,000 seats to some of those crummy regular season games, and the Toronto fans are filling your arena, you don't mind selling them your $20 drinks and your $15 hot dogs, or charging them $35 to park. And they may be a strong foundation of your regular season fan base. So what if they don't have official residence here? Maybe they rent a place for 6 months a year. How do you shut them out from buying tickets, to go see games? I mean, I would imagine that her point is correct, that there is a percentage of people that go to Panther games that are from Toronto that, come down here for the winter, probably rent some joint, and, that they go to a lot of games because they're hockey fans.
Now that we're not on the lunchbox, I could say how I really feel, which is just a horse shit, punk ass bullshit move that is nothing. I mean, it makes no sense, because in reality, it's not going to keep anybody out, because those people can still go through the secondary market and get in. You can't start, asking for papers, please, passport, please, on the way in. And all it does is make you look bad and amateurish and thin-skinned, or just. But that's typical.
It's an embarrassment. It really is.
What we've seen from management lately,
Yeah,
and it gets back to this whole dichotomy as is it possible to root for a team and its players to go far, while at the same time rooting for nothing but embarrassment and failure for the front office and management?
Nothing but catastrophe befall the front office, from the once you get past the GM, who seems to have done a rather remarkable job here, even though we doubted him.
Yeah.
But
so-
yeah, I mean, it's just how could that not have been rescinded, or that there wasn't some kind of a harsh memo coming from the NHL office that we're about open
Open-mindedness,
know
equality, fair.
opportunity and equal opportunity and all this stuff, and we would never consider shutting out our Canadian neighbors from our games.
all I know is I think like the army from Terrence and Phillip is going to show up with pitchforks
Yeah.
and lanterns and basically with their flapping heads. Terrence and Phillip from South Park.
South
Have you-
Park, South
Yeah.
Yeah.
Park.
I just would imagine that would be a great visual if like just a storm of enraged Canadians, if there is such a thing, because they weren't enraged at Toronto. Is it still called Maple Leaf Gardens? Whatever,
I
wherever
don't
they
know,
were
man. It's
last
got to be
night.
something, some
Yeah,
.com schmenkdom or something involved there.
should-
Anyway, yeah, I mean, and
You
they've
know what
been
they
great
should
fans
do?
over the years. I mean, it's hard to get a ticket to those games.
I say
almost impossible.
everybody who gets shut out from buying a ticket through the Panthers sources because they don't have U.S. residency, whether they're Canadian or for wherever, they should all show up and fill up the parking lot with their vans and RVs and just camp out during the game and just drink.
You sound like Donald Trump, man.
Molson Canadian and just start, leaving all the bottles behind for everybody.
You're like the NHL version of the Proud Boys here, man. What are you talking about? Those guys just got 20 years or whatever, or about to.
seditious conspiracy.
Yeah. How come everybody associated with the Trumpster is in jail? I mean, that ever followed any of his
Except
advice,
him.
or they're either broke or in jail. Every one of these people, it's amazing.
Don't they realize that they're all patsies? Like the one guy who's at the center of the mayhem,
Yeah.
it never gets touched. But all that, like, when are they going to figure it out? And you know what? Maybe it's just a Darwin thing. It's just
How is it possible that this is being ignored? That you have like all of the guys that he had originally with him, all ended up getting sentenced to something, even though he pardoned most of them. And now all of his other followers, hundreds of people have been put in jail based on this whole January 6th nonsense that he was orchestrating. And this guy is still rolling around running for president. It's what happened to this country, Mayo? You should be back on the city desk doing editorials.
But
it should be a perfect time.
It just goes to show you whether it's the Final Four or politics, anything is possible. So, to your question, can the Cats win it all? Yes, this year anything is possible.
They're getting close, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
no,
look,
feels
you're
good.
you're in a great spot here.
6 games down, 10 to go to win the cup, to hoist the cup.
And,
you got to win 16 games.
Carolina
And
looked really good in
down.
their opener against the Devils, but we've seen the Devils bounce back from horrible losses in the opener. They did against the Rangers. They got trounced in the first two games on their home ice and bounced back. So don't know if I want to concede that series. Panthers Kraken. That is our prediction for the Stanley Cup.
That would be something.
And that'll be a classic.
Opposite
The
ends.
TNT and ESPN executives will be diving out of the windows.
Seattle versus Miami.
Yeah, as and that make for some amount of schlepping for the loyal Panther fans who no doubt would travel to those games in Seattle.
Tell you what, if it's Vegas Panthers, I'll sign up and volunteer to cover games for the Sun Sentinel since they don't seem to like to cover the Panthers at all.
Yeah.
But if they just buy me a plane ticket, me and Hyde, I'll go out there and start writing for them free of charge.
Very nice. Now
my
you're
offer.
back into being a hockey expert. I like that.
Yeah.
All right, very good. So who is your pick now? I mean, who are you going with in the Derby? What was the final analysis here?
Well, the final analysis is I always like going when people don't say anybody's name, and I didn't hear many people talking about two Phils, but the early odds are out and 9-1. I'm throwing him in I'm sticking with Forte as my top choice, especially 5-1. Look, not much of the final betting pool is in there yet, but this gives an indication that people think it's
Probably comes down to what, 4-1?
Maybe 7-2. But
Yeah.
I'll take anything more than 5-2 or higher. I'm going to do some heavy straight across the board betting on them, and then my exotics are going to include all the Pletcher horses. So it will include the Tappet, Trice, and Kings Barnes, and I'm going to be also throwing a little bit of your guy, verifying.
Oh yeah,
I like two Phils. Again, I like to spread. Pretty wide in those
some
2
all
and the
buttons,
3
are appropriate for sure.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'll key Forte with like 2 or 3 in the second and third positions and spread pretty wide. And I'm not afraid to throw a couple $100 in here on trifectas. And
not anymore, now, Mr. Insurance Collection. You're unbelievable.
And again, when you throw, when you put
You have
together,
gotten much more bold since that catastrophe struck
yes,
you. Yeah.
wealth can make you bolder. That's for sure.
I mean, you're rooting for tornadoes to hit, Dania Point.
No, just a couple of hurricanes.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding. I don't want any more calamities.
Oh,
I've
please.
had plenty for the year between the floods and the past storms. But but to answer your question, scared money never wins, and bold money tends to
Gotta
keep
gotta
going.
play some bombs in this thing.
And we got a big day at Gulfstream today. It's Oaks Day,
be out there
and we're
later
going to
on.
be
Yeah.
out there for the lunchbox. We're going to be having a contest. I got to figure out a restaurant. I don't know which one yet.
Races will already be on.
I have a feeling since it's
Yeah.
Cinco de Mayo, I'm going to have to come up with some sort of Mexican.
You're not a big
restaurant.
Mexican food guy, though.
I'm not. Of all the major cuisines
Yeah,
out there,
I mean, you never discuss any Mexican food, any places.
Never. He never does.
because the way it's
Big,
done
big
here,
section of the culinary, scene down
Yeah, I
there
like
is Mexican restaurants.
I don't like the way they do a lot. The places that do the cheesy gloppy burritos and like, I'm sorry, but what's the places that? Well, I'm not a big Rocco's Tacos fan, and I'm not a big fan
La Bamba?
of La
La
Bamba.
Bamba
I'm
does
not
it,
a
yeah.
La Bamba fan. I mean, I've been there, and it's fine.
I like La
okay?
Bamba.
They're okay. I mean, not my
It's
favorite,
fine.
but
I don't
okay.
need to like
Yeah.
rag on them, but I do like high-end Mexican. Like there's this place that used to be around called Eduardo de San Angel, and it was like kind of more refined, some upscale Mexican. And at the Lona is a place on Fort Lauderdale Beach that this chef Pablo Salas, he had some really interesting things. He had like a thing. It was like pumpkin stuffed with all kinds of. It was like upscale Mexican,
Really,
and I
just
like
give
that.
me a beef burrito, man. I don't need a
Well, that's
pumpkin
you.
stuffed with, liverwurst. I mean, forget about
Although
that.
I gotta give props to our friends when we did that show with Nicky Mohan at that place El Guanaco, and you missed
Oh, yeah,
that show.
good.
But it's the combination. It was Mexican and also Salvadoran food.
This Casa Frida was very good, I thought.
Casa Frida has good.
As a fan
yeah.
of California Mexican food, and having been to Mexico a few times to sample the real thing down there in Tijuana, and points slightly south.
Casa Maya is up in Deerfield
Casa Maya,
Beach,
always
in the
gets rave reviews
same
from everybody.
plaza as your
Everybody
friends
likes it.
at the Tipperary Pub.
And what is it? Baja Cafe, I believe it's called, on
That
Hillsborough
one,
and Federal. Pretty good, pretty good.
It's all right, but I like
Yeah.
Casa Maya. They have really good moles and some also those pippin sauces. Like that's what I like. Is
For,
like
for a
this
guy
shit-
that doesn't like this stuff, you only like the the high end.
Like some really nice
That's
places.
me
that
because
are-
I'm a
Like
snob.
the Mexican Carbone is where you want
Yeah, I
to
was
go.
gonna say, it's
Well,
not really-
because when it comes to the burritos and the tacos, I want that in either Texas or California. I've become spoiled because I'm
There you go.
well traveled, and I just don't think any place down here. There are a couple of taco stands and carnicerias and little convenience stores
yeah, the one by me.
out
does-
west
the
in.
one by me does a really good job.
Oh yeah, okay, but I'm thinking up in like western Palm Beach County where they have all these farms and a lot of Mexicans work there, farm workers, and they have all these trucks and also little stores, and they have some really good real deal kind of taco things. To me, if I see a taco and it has shredded lettuce on it, I just want to throw it against the wall like the guy with your mustard and sandwich.
It's Schiavelli, who looks exactly like Jeff Van Gundy. I mean, he really does. All right, we got to run here, Michael Mayo. We'll catch you out there at the track. We've got Ron Rothstein coming up here to help us analyze what's going on with the Knicks and the Miami Heat. So we'll get into that with Ron Rothstein, the coach, going to join us here in a few minutes. Michael, later on, Mike Mayo's Lunchbox at Gulfstream Park. That's 12 o'clock. It's underway. There'll already be racing action at Churchill Downs, which I believe has a 10:30 post. And we'll be back with more in a moment. Ron Rothstein going to join us. Now that.
The time.
8:38.
Ponies in Style at Champions, the outstanding simulcasting room at beautiful Hialeah Park. Yes, the grand old lady of thoroughbred racing has never been more vibrant, and you can wager on the races from the top tracks around the country while enjoying a cocktail at the Brass Rail Bar or any of the fine food served throughout the facility. If poker is your game, you're covered in style, and you can play all your favorite Vegas-style games, including blackjack, craps, and roulette, in Hialeah Park's sizzling hot casino. Get a player's card when you walk through the door for all kinds of generous amenities, including our favorite, free play, when you come out to the ultimate casino and entertainment destination, Hialeah Park.
These days, we're all looking for comfort anywhere we can find it. Thank goodness for Landlubbers Raw Bar and Grill in Plantation, because they are making sure you are as comfortable as possible. First of all, they're not only open for delivery and pickup. All you have to do is go to landlubbersbarandgrill.com for both pickup and free delivery. You're going to have the best wings in the world. You're going to have a great burger. You're going to have their amazing soups. Again, Landlubbers, Raw Bar and Grill. It's nice and easy. Just go to landlubbersbarandgrill.com for both your pickup and free delivery. Thank goodness for Landlubbers for making you always feel right at home.
Are you looking to buy your first home? Have you been turned down for a loan? Do you need to refinance or get money out of your home? Call Michael Kodzie, CEO of Choice Mortgage. He's been helping the South Florida community get mortgages for 30 years.
Hi, this is Michael Kodzie, CEO of Choice Mortgage. We have the most competitive fixed rates in the market. Call me 24/7, 561-441-2730. And remember, I don't just work banking hours. Make the right choice for your home. Call Choice Mortgage today.
Ron Rothstein with us here on 940 Wins, 1230 The Zone, around the world on the iHeartRadio app. Milwaukee, we've discussed defending Giannis in the past. Of course, it came up last year with the reverse triangle and 2 that Lubie recommended, and you did an excellent job of diagramming that verbally here, even though it seemed ridiculous in nature. My thought is this, and Giannis likes to shoot that 3. Would you rather have Giannis Antetokounmpo shooting a 3 for you, or Henry Finkel, if you were the coach of the Milwaukee Bucks?
Could I say I'd rather have Lubie?
I don't think you would, Coach, but I appreciate that.
He can't reach the basket from that far away.
Enjoy your trip to work with lots of laughs thanks to Defo and Lubie. Now on the Defo Show.
All right, welcome back to the show. Jeff DeForest, Michael Lubie, Lubitz here with you, and very happy to welcome this gentleman to the program. It's always great having a basketball conversation with him. And think about, how great this guy is, that after throwing a Henry Finkel reference at him, he still volunteers to be on our program. Suggesting that you would have Hank Finkel shooting a 3. We welcome Ron Rothstein, the coach, to the show. And, of course, doing a great job as a Heat analyst now in his most recent capacity with the team. Coach, how are you? I mean, we haven't had this feeling here since like 1969. I mean, this is a real Cinderella story, I think, although you might have anticipated it more so than even some of the Heat Nation, that Miami would not only still be alive, but be thriving in the second round of the playoffs. How are you, my friend?
First of all, I do question my sanity every time I say yes. That's number one.
What a way to ruin a morning, yeah.
Number 2, it's always a pleasure. Always a pleasure. Number 2, I'm going to admit I'm probably as surprised as most people.
Oh yeah, all right.
I didn't particularly see this coming, and I think it's. But Spo kept saying all year, we're trending in the right direction. We're trending in the right direction. And but what happened was, at one point, our defense was pretty good. Our offense suffered. And then our offense got better, and our defense was suffering. And lo and behold, it all has come together during the playoffs. Now, this has happened before, okay? And it'll happen again in the future to other teams. A couple of things going on, and I think one of them is that even though we've lost Kyle and Victor, everybody else is healthy. And some of the new additions, primarily Kevin Love.
Yes.
His addition and the ability for him to he's played well since he got here, but when he first got here, he wasn't making his shots. And now he's making those shots. And believe me, they've been a big difference maker, and they've solidified our starting lineup, enabled Caleb to come off the bench, although he did start in Jimmy's place the other night, and he was fabulous. But Kyle is healthy. So many good things going on. And listen, these guys have believed in themselves all year long. So in that regard, this is not surprising. And we're playing with a confidence and trust in one another that really resonates. So we'll see what happens.
I remember being ecstatic when we first got the franchise here. A huge basketball fan, naturally, and we were still playing some recreational ball, and all of my friends were so excited about it. And you were the head coach of the team, and I'm watching this 56-point game by Jimmy Butler against the Milwaukee Bucks, and I'm thinking in Heat history, I know we had the LeBron game in Boston, Dwayne Wade in Dallas. You would be a great guy because you've essentially been involved with the franchise. I mean, except for years here and there since the inception. Was that, I mean, worthy of being considered the best performance that we've seen by an individual under the circumstances in Heat history?
Well, I don't want to say it was the best. I'll say it's as good as any.
Yeah.
Because I don't think you can quantify or, decide between like Dwayne's 4th straight game performance in the Dallas finals, LeBron's 45 or 46 point game in Boston Garden, and a potential closeout game for them, and one that would have sent us home. Jimmy's performance has been, and since he's been here, his playoff performances have been pretty epic, and that one was as good as any you're going to find. Yes, it was truly a great performance, and it's not a one-off. This is something that Jimmy's been doing since he got here. You got to take your hat off to him, and you got to put him in that category with Dwayne and LeBron. I think there's no way around it. I mean, it's real.
Coach, and you were with the Pistons, you've been with the Pacers, you've been with a lot of teams that have had great players. When they're and we've seen Spo do this, be as hands-on at getting players to the next level. He was a big part of LeBron after that disaster in 2010, saying, look, you have to go in the post. I know you don't want to be a power forward. I'm sorry. You're big, you're strong, you're athletic. You got to go in the post. LeBron went in the post. He took his game to another level when no one thought he could. When you are a coach of that nature and that level, who's won titles, who's done those things, and then you see a player who's like Butler, who just on his own can take it to another level, do you just stay out of the way? Like, what do you do as a coach when everything in you tells you to coach and this guy clearly doesn't really need it?
Well, I'm going to tell you this. Jimmy was not a three-point shooter before this year, really.
That's true.
Okay? And I know for a fact he was challenged by his head coach. You want to expand your game? You've got to become a three-point shooter. And he has responded. So you don't coach every single minute. You don't coach every single second. You prepare. You prepare your team. And there's a lot goes into preparing your team. And then your team has to go out and perform. So the combination. Nothing gets done, and no one does anything by themselves. So, when you can get a collaboration of people pulling together and buying into what needs to be done, because, listen, Spo talks, he's foolish, or the other guys are foolish not to listen. He's done it. He's got the proof in the pudding, and he's been sensational at it. So why shouldn't you listen? Why shouldn't you expand your game? You're a professional.
It's funny. I mean, it comes in after Pat Riley's coaching a team, so obviously some very shiny and expensive shoes to fill. It didn't strike me that he'd already been the head coach here 15 years.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
He's generally regarded as the best in the game right now, or if not the best, maybe even, finding his place into that conversation in history. Do you believe, Ron Rothstein, and obviously well-versed in coaching experience, that if Eric Spoelstra was an assistant on Red Klotz's staff, that the Generals might have gone 500 against the Globetrotters? Is he that good?
Well, that's, come on now, be fair. You got to be fair. Come on, man.
Who would fit the category, I guess? I don't know. Auerbach?
No one. Maybe Lubie, but not you.
It's been remarkable, though. I mean, I don't know. Is this guy like the best at what he does? And at the same time, I don't know that you can say he's underappreciated, but I'm not sure that everybody considers him, in that category of the greats of the game.
Well, listen, he's been named one of the top 15 coaches in the history of the game.
Fits.
He's got I think he's now number 4 in playoff wins. His winning percentage is way up there. He's in total wins. He's creeping up the ladder. Not easy to hold a head coaching job in the NBA in one city for 15 years. It doesn't happen often. You know, you can point to a few guys that had 10+ year runs. The guys that I remember over the years, Dick Modern, Dallas, John McLeod in Phoenix. You know, today's younger generation, they don't even know who those people were.
Yeah.
Pop in San Antonio, obviously. Pat had it
Anywhere.
running LA, I think was 9 years. No, Pat's run in LA was 9 years.
Yeah.
In New York was 5. And you know, we're talking some of the greatest coaches ever.
Yes.
And you know, Red Al back in Boston. And I'm probably leaving a few out, but it's, you know, how many guys have coached in the league? Hundreds. And I'm naming what, half a dozen?
Yeah.
Over the course of 75 years. So it is historic. But it's always interesting. And to me, I've always noted that whatever success Spo has had, okay, I think that the success also goes to Pat, because Pat is the one who chose him, and Pat is the one who has been his advocate all along. There were a few seasons where things were rocky and everything. Nothing's perfect. Nothing goes perfect all the time. But Pat has always had great belief in Spo. And without that guy in the front office who believes in you, you know, it's hard to keep your job. But it's been a great combination and belief and trust. And it's been borne out. I mean, it's been proved.
So we know as it goes, you'll say, and you're not a coach anymore, so you should have some free reign here. Officials don't lose games for teams. Officials don't win a game for a team. That's the saying that sports people like to say. But officials do make calls that can turn games, at least from a fan perspective. When you're a coach and you're watching refs make 4 or 5 ridiculous calls in like a 7-minute span, how do you, one, keep your cool on the sideline, and how do you not let it affect your team? And let me ask you point blank, can it affect a team and the outcome of a game?
Yeah, absolutely. If you allow it. Look, there's 48 minutes. There's over 200 possessions in the game.
Yeah.
It's a hard game to officiate. But what I always used to say to the guys, the officials, when I would complain, and obviously I complained a lot. You know, you win a lot. You complain a lot. You know, because it's never your fault.
100%.
You know, but what happens is, the thing that really bothers me is when you go to the replay. Okay, the game is stopped. People will miss calls during the course of the game, and that's inevitable. Players make mistakes. Coaches make mistakes. But you do remember those timely ones, the ones that stick out, you know, at the end of the game.
Yep.
You do remember those. So you think those carry greater importance. But there are plays earlier in the game that carry as much importance because it's 2 points here or 2 points there or whatever. But when you go to the replay, and then the replay center comes in, and it is clearly what you see is wrong, and it's not corrected. That's annoying. And that's what happened. It's happened to us twice in this series. In these playoffs. Once in the Milwaukee series when Giannis picked up his 3rd foul late in the 2nd quarter. I forget which game, when he fouled Hayward Highsmith going to the basket. They challenged it. They reviewed it and said it wasn't a foul. That was a travesty.
Clear.
Yeah.
Bold face.
That
was a bold face. Wasn't right. And what happened the other night in that 4-point play,
Oh
when
my
they
God.
said that Brunson's shot came before the foul was committed. That's a joke. And the NBA needs to clean that up. They really need to clean that up because there's stuff going on that's not right that enables those calls to be made and come out with what was clearly, if you ask 100 people, okay, and if people who know the rules, I doubt there'll be more than one or two would have agreed with that call. That was terrible. But in the same token, we could have done a better job rebounding the ball. That really hurt us.
Yep.
Okay, and we did miss Jimmy, in not only in his points, but guys made up for it. But where we missed him was we missed his ability to get into the paint and get to the foul line. So our made free throws were down, numbers were down, and our paint touches, our shots in the paint. For example, the first game, we were 19 to 37 in the paint. We had 38 points, and we shot 50-something%. Okay. In the game we lost the other night, we still had 19 made field goals. We had 38 paint points, but on 27 attempts. So we shot like 70% or 60-something%. But we were 10 attempts lower. And so in those three areas, rebounding, free throw line, and paint touches and attempts, we were down. And that was you could attribute that definitely to the loss of Jimmy, not having Jimmy there that night. That's just the reality of the situation. And in spite of that, our guys, I thought it was one of the most inspiring heat efforts I've ever seen, especially in a loss. We did everything but win that game.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens tomorrow.
Oh, all those celebrities were dying along the the expensive seats there in the front row by Spike Lee and company. That particular referee, what was it, Foster? I think Degenerate had noticed that the Heat are like 0-14 in games that he's reffed the last.
He lost his last 9.
Yeah,
The last 9 times he's reffed 30.
It's unbelievable. All right, a very perilous profession you chose. I mean, obviously it can be lucrative and rewarding, but Budenholzer gets canned after the Milwaukee series. Now, he had a serious nervous flopschwitz on his forehead during some of those games in the late going, and you're thinking, when is he going to realize that you might have to do something different on Jimmy Butler, except let him go for 60 every night? But then subsequent to that, he had a press conference after the series, and he looked like one of those guys you see when you see like clips of a deposition of some guy that did it, and he looked like he knew the end was near. That's a weird thing. I mean, he just won a championship a couple of years ago and already out. And that's happened to 3 of the last 4 coaches that have won championships. They're no longer with their team. I mean, does that strike you as being odd, or is it just something that comes with the territory, Coach?
It's pretty much something that comes with the territory. What have you done to me lately?
Yeah.
But Bud's a really good guy. He really is. And he's had a terrific career. And he's a very good coach. But you do know he lost his brother during that series.
Yeah.
His brother
wow.
Tragic.
brother died in a car accident. Not like his brother was sick. Not like his brother was going to die. His brother was fine and died suddenly in a car accident. And boy, I'll tell you what.
That's a jolt.
Yeah. Listen, I lost my brother very suddenly 20 years ago.
Oh, jeez.
And it's not something that you overcome very quickly.
Right.
And it can really, really mess with you.
Yeah.
And whether, he did look a little distracted, and who knows what was going on in his world.
Yeah.
And, but this is a very unforgiving business.
Wow.
And nobody twists our arm. And my wife says I peaked too early. Considering what they're paying guys today.
Yeah, to go away.
So I went away for a lot less.
All right, final thing, Coach. We always appreciate. Yeah.
I went away and I had to go to work. To go away and retire.
That's a thing that keeps driving us is the need to continue to have some kind of financial income. But The Knicks and the Heat, Game 3. This is no way. It's funny too because we were looking back on the Knicks Heat rivalry, and of course that was late '90s and into 2000. They had met 4 straight times in the postseason. So many different incidents that occurred there. That Jeff Van Gundy thing around the ankles of Alonzo Mourning looked like a schnauzer biting a mailman. You had the dwarf bowling with Charlie Ward and P.J. Brown. You had that incident where they wandered off the bench there and all got suspended with Ewing during that fight and changed the series. Allen Houston shot. This doesn't seem anything like that. Are there any of those elements? Is it just too much distance between the time that those games and the Knicks Heat rivalry was very intense here in town, and used to be able to do talk radio, just flip a mic open and go, Knicks Heat, what do you think? And 4 hours later, the people stopped insulting each other, and you were collecting a nice, easy paycheck. I mean, are you seeing any? Is it just unrelatable what was going on between these two teams in the past?
Yeah, I think it's different now. I think it's definitely different. We haven't played them enough to build up, in playoff situations to build up that kind of animosity.
Yeah,
it's just not there. But this is very competitive. And it's a physical series. And who knows what'll happen? You never know. But I think the mindsets are a little bit different, and the rules are a little bit different. And guys, they don't want to miss games; they want to be able to play. So I don't see. It's not the same thing. The New York-Miami rivalry is there, and you can feel it, and the competition is fierce. But I think it's great competition. I really do. I really enjoyed these first 2 games, and I look forward to. I enjoyed the win much more, but I look forward to, the rest of the series. I think it's going to be a compelling series. I really do, and I just want to remind everybody that, even though we are not broadcasting on Fox on Bally Sports Sun, we do a post game show.
Nice.
Oh, great.
Eric Reed, John Crotty, and I, we've always done this. And so, shortly after the game is over on TNT or whatever, Saturday we're going to be on Bally Sports Florida after the game.
Oh, great.
So, and Monday it'll be on Bally Sports Sun, the normal station that we broadcast from. So every game in the playoffs. We did it last year. We've done it for a number of years. We have a post-game show on the Bally stations.
Oh, we'll keep the champagne on ice too, because we may be we may be doing something here that nobody expected when some of the Heat Nation was saying, "Yeah, we'd rather not make the playoffs at all. May as well lose to Chicago." So that sentiment seems to have dissipated and turned into an evolving love for what the Heat are doing in the postseason. Always a pleasure, Coach. Thank you so much for being with us, and we hope to talk again as this playoff run, may well continue to some very, very high levels. So, thanks so much for being with us.
All right, guys. Good to talk to you. Be well.
All right, thanks so much, Ron Rothstein, ladies and gentlemen.
He's the best.
Ronnie was great today, man. Huh?
He's so great.
Yeah. He was on it. No, I love that guy. I really do. Original Heat. Right there. Original Heat head coach. 88 season? 88, 89?
He's the guy that literally came up with the only defense that ever, outside of Dean Smith not playing or giving him the ball. He's the only guy that ever devised a defense that could stop Michael Jordan.
Yes.
Shit out of him, but it was his idea that when Chuck Daly had no answers, he goes to Daly and says, "Look, man, we got to do this." And Daly's like, "Sure," and it worked. And it actually worked.
He was actually, taking pages from the WWE in terms of. They weren't showing like zone defenses or anything. They couldn't play zones back then, but. They were actually showing Texas steel cage matches.
You got to do this.
Lambeer was doing the airplane spin with Larry Bird. It was fantastic.
You got to be like this guy.
Just slamming him to the ground at the end of spinning around like Linda Blair. Unbelievable. No, we love Ronnie Rothstein, man. He's been around the league forever, man, and still razor sharp. So that was good stuff. All right, we thank you guys for joining us. We'll be out at Gulfstream Park. Going to be very exciting out there later on today, and I think it's going to be a nice day. So we'll be able to be on our outside digs and say hello to some people. Come on by, and we'll be there 12 to 1. Mike Mayo's lunchbox. The Mayo Man is on fire lately, so I know. Hopefully, you'll come up with some winners today. You'll already have racing action going on at Churchill Downs. The first race post there, 10:30 this morning. Caton Bredar was brilliant. We thank her for being on the program today. We didn't have the professor. He returns next week.
Yes.
And he was on a skiing trip that somehow landed him in Las Vegas. I don't know.
That sounds like Defo's kind of skiing trip.
What kind of skiing is he doing there? Is he on the water skis in the Bellagio fountains after a night being, on a bender?
He sent us a picture, and I'm like, that looks like Vegas. That doesn't look like Tahoe.
Yeah. He's at the Monabi Gabi,
In Vegas.
looking at the fountains of the Bellagio across the street there and eyeballing all the babes that are walking on the strip.
Sounds like Defo who turned to Tahoe. I think Vegas is better. Okay.
I like Tahoe. It's all right. But, and I've attempted to snow ski there, believe it or not. But I mean, being Jewish, we are no good at balance sports. You don't see a lot of Israeli, gymnasts, do you?
I enjoy skiing. I don't know if I'm great at it, but I like it. It's fun.
I would enjoy it immensely, but, I'm just no good at it. I mean, I'm more inclined to, go Sonny Bono in that thing and just straddle a tree at some point at about 60 miles an hour. No, even a bunny slope was hard for me to navigate. And, I was one of those guys that I slid and fell getting out of the chair.
Oh, Jesus.
Which is pretty pathetic, isn't it? And then you're on the ground there and nobody wants to help you up because you look like such an asshole. And they figure, what is this guy going to do on the slopes if he can't even get out of the ski chair? Where you land, and it's like impossible to fall down. It's incredible. So, I did a little, what is that called? The snowplow thing, where you're going like 2 miles an hour down the bunny slope.
Yes, that's how you're supposed to stop the snowplow. Yes, sir.
And then I got scared and said, no way I'm going out on the slopes.
See, it's so funny because I actually embrace skiing. I don't know if I'm great. But
I know I'm no good at this stuff, though, Louis. I know I'm no good at it.
Yeah, I'm weirdly good at it. I don't know if I'm great at it. But
ice skating, no good. We didn't do a lot of that in Brooklyn, but even when having access to it, I was just never any good at ice skating, snow skiing, anything like that. Couldn't do it. Balance beam, the pommel horse.
Bad at all that.
Climbing ropes, no good. No good. When they had that in gym class, they broke out the gymnastic equipment. I had a medical. Please excuse Jeffrey from gym class today. He was not feeling well. I believe he has a stomach virus. While he was still so concerned about his academics, he went to school. But no physical activity. All right, we got to run. We'll have some physical activity. We'll be shaking it up at Gulfstream Park later on today. Good luck, everybody, with your derby bets. I hope we gave you some insight. We gave you every horse.
Yes.
Including horses that weren't running in the derby as our selection. Well, all I can say is good luck there, man, because this is just like throwing darts, I think, in a way. You may win and say, yeah, I knew it all along, but, it's a lot of bizarre luck involved in this thing, unless the chalk comes through, unless Tapit, Trice, and Forte are both there.
Yeah.
In which case, maybe a little split ski there. This could be like that Danza trifecta. Where you play them in first and third and hope some, it's called the garbage sandwich in Degenerate vernacular, and you hope some garbage comes in the middle.
Yep.
Like a 60-1 shot that just flew in from Japan like yesterday because they got into the race. A helicopter is hovering over the stretch, and they just drop them right in. Look at that. Second is that Japanese horse, huh? When you go up, oh, look at that, 60-1. Beautiful. All right, we'll see you later on as we leave you on that. For Mike Lubie Lewis, thank you for tuning in, everybody. We'll see you later on as we leave you on that.
The time.
It's 9:07.
Let's go to eat a damn snack.
Look what they done to my show.